Good afternoon, everyone. I believe that you enjoyed the networking lunch and enjoyed the first session. Now, the second sort of the program. Thank you for joining us today for the enlightening panel discussion. My name is Tadanori Nagasawa, and I'll be your moderator for this session. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all our distinguished guests and participants. We are privileged to have 4 distinguished panelists with us today. They are sitting on the stage. Mr. Hyungkun Yoon from Korea. Ms. Michal Ziso from Israel. And Kenta Ono, Japan. And Mathew from India. In a moment, each of our panelists will give a brief presentation on their expertise and experience, followed by panel discussion. I think we are asking the panelists for 15 minutes presentation, but I'm sure all of them are excited to talk more and more, so might be the time is not accurate, right? This is a very important sort of, our attitude to flexible to accept the changing situation. So please apologize in advance. So now let's begin with the presentations leading up to the much anticipated panel discussion. First up, we will introduce you. We have Mr. Hyungkun Yoon, a renowned design specialist with expertise spanning Japan, Korea, and China, and currently the director of the Korean Society of Design Sciences. Mr. Moon, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Today, I top the Korean new generation G and design. Hello, I'm Hyungkun Yoon. I'm from Korea. I'm glad to meet you. Today, I'm gonna talk about Korean new generation G and design. When I was young, I went to Japan and studied design at Chiba University. And I got my PhD there, and I worked at a Japanese company in Tokyo. The picture on the left is when I was young, keen in Japan company. I took a picture with the CEO and vice CEO on the company's at the foundation anniversary. The middle one is a picture of me as a professor at Yonsei University in Korea. The last one is a picture of me working in Shanghai at Jiaotong University in China. Closer to my, okay. I live in 3 countries and did a lot of research. I'm very interested in the culture and design of these 3 countries: China, Japan, Korea. Today, I'm gonna talk about Generation G in Korea. There will be Gen Z in your country too, compare it with Gen Z in Korea. There are many generations in Korea among them. I'm very interested in Gen Z because they are the future generation of Korea. They all have the power to expand and create culture through social media. The Korean media calls them the new generation K of Korea or Gen Z. 70% of them are still in middle school, high school, college. They will have active consumption and cultural creativity in the future. I studied about Gen Z characteristics in more detail. I want to talk about these points in more detail throughout this presentation. Here I will introduce them to you. They have a strong influence on social media. Their preference and opinion are affecting other generations as well. Their ideas are affecting the Korean economy. Their opinions are influence Korean social culture. They have new values that are different from the past. They value environmental protection, social responsibility, diversity. Companies should propose products and services for them. Companies are preparing new products and services based on Gen Z value. Companies are also affected by the value of Gen Z. They are digital native. They use the digital device every day. The digital devices are like another part of their body. They are good at handling digital devices. They use online shopping, social media, mobile apps, and online entertainment every day. They are leading the communication through digital. I summarized their characteristics in the three ways. They have strong influence through social media. Number two, they have new values that are different from the past. Number three, they are digital native in Korea. Gen Z in Korea is expected to bring new culture, innovation, and increased consumption. Question 2. Who is Gen Z? Generation Z. I look at Gen Z from the demographics, economic, and sociological perspective. Demographically, they are the future growth population. It's the ready population of consumption and production consumption. Generation Z was born from 1997 to 2012. As of 2020, the population is 8.44 million. It is about 16% of the total population of Korea. Okay. Economically, they was born in the rich era of Korea. Very poor, very rich century Korea. They don't know hunger and hardship. They travel abroad even if they became unemployed. They value their individual quality of life above all else. Sociologically, they spend at their own value. They enjoy communicating and sharing through SNS. They know how to get information quickly and consumer for their own preference. I'm summarized their characteristics in 3 ways. Demographically, they are future growth populations. Number 2, economical, they don't know hunger and hardship. Number 3, psychology and sociology, they spend at their own value. Question 3, who is Jan in terms of consumption? They pursue values such as environment protection, human rights protection, and fair trade. They buy products and services of this value. They seek value consumption. Gen Z, they value the experience of going on a trip, going to good restaurant, and participating in the cultural event. They pay for experience that satisfy their emotions. They believe that experiences are more enriching. They seek experiential consumption. I saw the characteristic is 2 ways from a consumption perspective. 1, value consumption, and experience consumption. Question 4, Gen Z's impact on Korean society. First, positive aspect. Environmental protection. Gen Z has a higher interest in environmental protection. They prefer eco-friendly products. They reduce the use of disposable products. They participate in environmental campaigns. They support environmental protection policies. And human rights protection. Gen Z is highly interested in protecting human rights in Korea. They boycott products from companies that violate human rights. They participate in campaigns to protect human rights. When I was young, even if I had complained about companies, I couldn't influence them. I have not enough powers. Number 4, respect diversity. Gen Z respect diversity. They respect diverse culture, race, and gender. Korea is a homogeneous nation. In Korea, there was invisible discrimination against other cultures and race. However, Gen Z does not discrimination, respects it. Gen Z participates in the consumer market directly or indirectly. Gen Z leads social change with their consumption. Gen Z is leading changes in Korean society in the positive direction. Gen Z participate in the consumer market directly or indirectly for their value through consumption to induce social change and lead Korean society in positive direction. Gen Z have three main values: environmental protection. Number two, human rights protection. Number three, respect for diversity. They directly or indirectly induce change in the consumer market based on this value. Question 5. The role of design in Korea Gen Z. Business strive to protect the environment. Companies strive to develop eco-friendly products. Business strive to protect the environment and develop eco-friendly products. With Generation Z, Gen Z, activities, companies develop eco-friendly products and strive to protect the environment. Gen Z, they are very busy, so companies are developing time-saving service design. Companies make a simple UI, UX for them. Companies make time-saving products for them. Their demands bring about social change. Conclusion. The new generation has new values. They always ask for something new. Design can meet their needs. At the same time, innovative designs make a difference in their life. So, a new era developed through the interaction of design and the needs of a new generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Young. Audience, I think you have a question, but I think we go through all 4 panelists, then I will give you a kind of a chance to ask for the question, okay? So next, we have Michal Ziso, an architect and entrepreneur driving innovation through their ventures. The Ziso is a company, and they sleep, focusing on space technology and design. Ms. Ziso, we invite you to begin.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. I'm sure you're all a bit sleepy after lunch. I'll tell you that I have many slides, less than 30 seconds each, so try not to blink. I will be talking to you about transcending boundaries through thinking about designing in space and redefining design on Earth. So I'll start with asking you a question. What would you say if I told everybody that on you right now, you have at least one thing that was not designed for us here on Earth? One thing that was designed actually for astronauts in the most extreme environments of all. I'm talking about the small cameras that you have in your smartphones. Probably a lot of you also have shoe insoles that were also invented first for astronauts. And we have many, many things that we are all using every day that were not designed for us. They were designed for astronauts in a completely different environment, harsh environment, but we are using them today on Earth. So first, I'll just start by introducing myself. My name is Michal Ziso. I'm an architect by trade. I focus on inclusive human-centered design with and without gravity. I'm also a space architect, researching and designing living environments for humans outside of planet Earth. And I will talk to you about the transformative journey of the convergence of space and design. I have two companies, Ziso Innovation and Architecture Lab and the Sleep Tech startup, and these are a few of my clients and collaborators that I enjoy very much to work with every day. So as I said, thinking about space and thinking about design in space is not really a one-direction thing. It's something that goes back and forth. By thinking about space, we can actually design for the future of Earth. So I think you're all now ready for liftoff and the beginning of the cosmic perspective on design. And I will start with a selfie of astronaut Aki Yoshida, Japanese astronaut, in 2012. He took this selfie when he was in a spacewalk outside of the International Space Station, which is this amazing thing. This is the International Space Station. It has been designed with a global collaboration all through the 80s, assembled piece by piece all through the 90s. And since the year 2000, it has been the home of astronauts and will retire in the year 2030. You may imagine how, I'll first show you, the big wings are solar panels, and the place where astronauts live mainly is the white cylinder in the center. It's about 4 meters in diameter, and inside it's only 2.2 meters. That's all the space they have inside. And you're probably imagining that space looking something like this, but in reality, it looks like this. So for all of you designers, I'm assuming this kind of hurts your eyes, but there is a reason why it looks like this. It was designed mainly by engineers, not by designers or not by architects, and it was also designed because space is hard, so the purpose is to make or to keep the astronauts alive. Anything beyond survival was too hard to make, and that was in the 80s. Now, thinking about designing something that will survive and maintain the astronauts for 50 years almost, they had to constantly patch and add things to it. But I'm sure with better designs, maybe the astronauts would be able to function better. Everything in space is different. Materials behave differently. Another thing that was invented for space was Velcro, the things that are sticking to each other. So you see the yellow and blue patches. This is astronaut Nicole Stott. She's brushing her teeth, and maybe you can locate her toothpaste and water stuck in the top there. And there's also a ketchup bottle for some reason stuck in another place. Everything in space is different. How we eat, what we drink, how we sleep, what we wear. So if we think about eating, for example, in space, first thing is it is very, very expensive to launch things to space. So we want to launch food that is dehydrated, and in space, add water to it. Now, astronauts in space, usually because they are rotating Earth in the International Space Station very, very fast, they're in a state of microgravity. That means they're kind of in a state of free fall, and the liquids in their body go up to their head. And that causes them to not feel taste or not be able to sense taste that much. So the food in space is mostly about texture. The enjoyment of food is because we have different textures and not different tastes. The taste that they can still feel is mainly spicy, so they have all spices up there in space. And astronauts really love to play with their food as well. Drinking is also completely different. Water behaves differently. It creates little bubbles, and you have to really make sure where the water goes because it can go everywhere. Sleeping, is a different situation. Astronauts usually take a sleeping bag, harness it to the wall to not fly away, and they kind of sleep like that with their fellow astronauts, kind of like having a sleeping bag in your office. There are some crew quarters, which are small pods, but there are not enough of them. And also wearing astronaut suits are actually little spaceships. They can maintain the astronauts alive. So everything in space is completely different. But when we think about the future and how it can impact us, today there are a lot of space agencies that launch competitions and challenges about food and food tech, thinking from anything from algae that can sustain us better, from, like I said, different textures in food. In the future, the food that we're now designing for astronauts, we may be consuming back here. If you look at the previous slide with the water bubble, I don't know if you've seen these water bubbles and algae to kind of not use water bottles, the plastic water bottles that pollute our planet. It's kind of when you look at the space water bubble and when you look at this, now maybe you can make the connection. One of my companies, The Sleep, we are creating a sleeping environment or a personalized sleeping environments for astronauts in space. And with that, we are aiming to also revolutionize how we sleep or recharge ourselves here on Earth. And Axiom is a commercial space company, a few weeks ago launched a collaboration with Prada to design their suits. Now, thinking about this kind of collaborations, what materials will they create? What systems they will create that we will be able then to use back here on Earth? So every place you get to in space is like a whole new world. It's a whole new kind of set of conditions, like a video game. So if Earth is our base, Earth, we have 24 hours a day, we have 1G, 1 gravity. These are our temperatures, we have about 8 billion people. And if we compare to Earth, so the International Space Station orbits Earth 16 times a day. So imagine how would you design products for people who are experiencing sunsets and sunrises every 90 minutes. Every 90 minutes, we go from dark to light, and we have to keep our circadian rhythms. We have 0G, it's actually micro-G, it's microgravity, because if we'll hold the station in place, we'll get the gravity of Earth, so it's rotating, and that's why it's microgravity. About 266 people have been living in the station so far, but every time between 4 to 10 astronauts at a time, so very, very isolated. It takes between 6 to 20 hours to get there. The 630 is the number of people that have been to space from the beginning of space travel. But then if we get to the moon, we have 14 days of day and 14 days of night. Everything weighs 1/6 as much as it would weigh here on Earth, and the temperatures are super extreme. 12 people have been there so far, and it takes only 3 days to get there. And now we're in the middle of the Artemis missions. We're going back to the moon, and more people are going to go back to the moon, and they're going to start living on the moon in order to create bases for us to go from Earth to Mars. So we should start thinking about also designing on the moon. And then Mars, the red planet, it has 24 hours and 40 minutes a day, a third gravity. It's not that hot, only as hot as 35 degrees, but it gets kind of cold, and 0 people have been there so far, and it should take between 6 to 8 months to get there. Now, if we look at the red planet, and if we talk about design, just looking at the different colors, if the red planet, Mars, compared to our planet, the blue planet, the Martian day, the Martian sky is red during the day, and the Earth sky is blue. But at night, our sky, our sunsets are red, and Martian sunsets are blue. So just by color theory and thinking how color can impact our human psychology, it's a whole different world there. If we think about the moon is completely in grayscale. Very cool and minimalistic, but also maybe a bit depressing. So maybe using color, colorful architecture, colorful products on the moon can really help human well-being. Now, if we think about exponential leaps, if you remember the first slide that I showed you with all the things that were invented for astronauts, one of those things were portable computers. The leap from the computers used at the Apollo missions, a full room of a computer, and now we have the small portable computers. And the reason that I'm mentioning this is because, I'm going to maybe talk a bit slower on this one, humans have the tendency to think that we can predict the future. What was, so will be, and usually we are wrong. The world changes exponentially. That means every day we have twice the amount of change than yesterday. So in reality, the difference between where we think we'll end up, our future that we are designing for, and where we actually end up, that delta is the exponential growth surprise factor. And we have to overcome this. Now, a lot of times, the reason that we have that delta is because we are wired for safety. We want what is safe, and sometimes we will sacrifice our comfort for safety. So what is known is good, and change is bad. But maybe we can add another thing to that equation, and new is exciting. So sometimes trying to use space as a creative thinking tool and try to anticipate things that will happen in the future in a world that will be completely different than ours, and that's also the reality for our own world, that can be the way for us to kind of go from the known and good and change is bad to something that is completely new and completely exciting. From space, we can redefine human identity, and these are my last few slides. Astronauts, when they look at Earth from space, they say that something changes in there's a cognitive shift. It is called, they look at Earth and they see it as one unit. They don't see borders, they don't see countries, they can see nature functioning as one. And something changes in their minds that when they come back to Earth, they still look at Earth in that way. And when we look at Earth at night, even though we are tiny specks of stardust, we can actually see ourselves. We can see humans by seeing electricity. We can see our power when we come together. So when I think about the future, when I think about the future of Earth, I think that if we can make humans not only survive, but thrive in space, and today the goal is to help astronauts thrive, and there are more and more people who are becoming astronauts, private astronauts, who are buying tickets to go to space. If we're thinking about Gen Z, a lot of people were starting to go to space. A friend of mine is going to space next Monday. So when your friends are starting to go to space, we are there. Probably a lot of people sitting in this room will get to see space maybe for a few minutes because we're already working on point-to-point transportation on Earth using space as the next level airplane. So from any point-to-point on Earth we can get to between 30 to 60 minutes. Just from going outside of space and coming back. So a lot of people, that should come in about 10 years. There are already people going, Jeff Bezos with Blue Origin, Richard Branson with Virgin Galactic. There are already people that are doing just that. So that's a very exciting future. But if we can not only make astronauts and people in space survive but thrive, we, by definition, can bring those innovations, bring those ideas back here to Earth and tackle anything that may come our way in the future, whether it is climate change to social changes. So I am optimistic. So I encourage everyone to try to think like an astronaut, to think about the different realities that we have there in space, who we are designing for. Probably a lot of times it will be people that weren't even born yet. What would they need? How can we detach ourselves from what we are so used to doing, the very, very, very basic things like eating, drinking, sleeping, and so on, and think like an astronaut, especially when you look at Earth as one unit that functions as one. And with that, I will wish you all ad astra, which is in Latin, to the stars, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ziso. Ms. Ziso. It's really smashing sort of know the. Actually, I'm excited to watch your video. Well, thank you very much. So next, Professor Kenta Ono from Chiba University is an expert in system design, which is a rich history in interface design for top corporations. Professor Ono, please take it away.
Thank you very much. So I'm Kenta Ono. So I'm so grateful that many people from the different country to come to our campus and to join the conference. So actually, I'm the one of the member of the DRI, Design Research Institute at Chiba University. And then so today, my title is Design from Tangible to Social. And then so, already everyone knows So before, so my generation, so design is not so complex. Yeah, it's product design and graphic design. But now, so we have the many different design. And then so, it's get to be difficult to grasp a notion of design according to the expansion of design field. And also that this is the topic, the WDA conference. And then so that's the main title is the design beyond. And then so we talk about the humanity and the planet and the technology and policy and maybe no more planets. So yeah, we have to think about the space, right? But then, so I have the question from the Nagasawa sensei, the coordinator. So this is the research and the education, the forum. And then so he asked us, and how can we educate the student to be able to design such those big issues? Then, so I think, of course, I believe, we can do. Designer can contribute, such kind of a big issue. But how to explain, so why we can do, and how we can educate, people to design such a big, issue. Then, so back to the definition of design. So this is the definition, the WDO, the website. So that this is the definition of design. And this definition is, I think that everyone can agree. So design is one of the problem solving, the process, right? Then, so I thought that, so we have the problem, right? Then, so we create the new idea, and then sometimes good and sometimes bad, and then so we have the feedback, and then so we create a new idea. Then, so finally, so we have the same color surface, so it means, we can solve the question. But, do you think so, we do like this process, like this? I think, design is something different. And sorry, and also that's the problem is also that become bigger and bigger. The product graphic or service system or social communities, and it's before, so it's more simple. Of course, I don't say easy, right? Simple one is sometimes difficult, right? But the number of the elements is small, right? But the social, so of course we have to consider more big number of the elements, right? Then, so problems, so we have to solve that become bigger and more complex, right? But then, so now, we try to solve these big cubes, right? But for me, so that's it's a little I have the feeling it's some different. So I think that design is always problem come from the users, right? Then so we create the new ideas, and then so that's we have the trial and the errors. Then so we have the ideas. Then so if the baby stop crying, wow, it's flower. Then so it's we solve the problem. So that's of course there's some baby like the flower, but some baby don't like the flower. So it depends on the users, right? But I think the design approach is like this approach. So in general, the problem solving is like this kind. this the problem solving, right? But the design is, I think that this, kind of the problem solving. So that's, of course, designer. So of course we can solve that kind of problem. But I think that the bottom one. So this is the uniqueness, unique approach of design. I think. Then, so I have the question: how can we educate the student to become able to design such those big issues? So actually, that this is a big question, but this is my idea. That logically, so if we have the proper field to repeat a cycle of test and feedback, that logically the student become able to design big issues. Logically, but it's not the efficient, I think. So I think that the more efficient is just we start from the simple one and then step by step. So it's the make cube bigger and bigger. So that is the same that solve the Rubik cube. Of course, we have to start small one and then the step by step. So that is, I think, more efficient and more first way to approach those kind of the big issues. Then, so I give the one example. This is one of the Japanese airway company. So they provide this kind of the service. Infants seat icon. Can you see this icon? This is right, the baby icon. So everyone can know. So where is the parents have the baby, right? Now logically, I think that it's good ideas, right? Someone don't want to hear the baby crying, right? But do you think that this is good ideas? I think that this is almost a good idea, but something I have the feeling something wrong. So because baby is not that harmful, right? So it's very natural, right? Then so I think that this cube is not perfect goal if just we focus on this 3 by 3, so that we can solve. But if we think more bigger cube, I think so this is not good solution. Then so I try to create, for example, I give the ear plug, and then so with kind of this message. I think for me, so that is more the design solution and the mature society, I think. So this is my last slide. So I think that's of course we can do the both, the approach, but we have to distinguish these two ways, and also that everyone can understand. So this kind of approach, of course, we can change the society. We can contribute any big issues. So this is the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ono. Lastly, Mr. Jakob Mathew of, it's a bit difficult to pronounce it, Shuristi Manipal Institute, is a design principal with the passion for leveraging design and transform society. And so, Mr. Mathew, the floor is yours.
Right, thank you. Konnichiwa, gozaimasu. So now we move from extra planet to our planet. And I'm a recent grandfather. So I had to write this down. My grandson is he has a part Christian heritage. So he's partly Protestant, partly Catholic. He's Hindu, he's Sikh, and he's also Jewish. Kind of makes him planetary. I was born in Singapore. I grew up in India. And half my family, I have only one Indian sister-in-law. The others are from all over the world. So we are actually inhabiting a world rather different from what our parents and our grandparents experienced. Now, design has had a role in changing how this world is. And designers are accused, and I think we all stand accused, of defuturing the planet for future generations. And now it's time for a shift to what we call refuturing. And going with the spaceship analogy, we are all passengers here. You're either all in or you're all out, because when you see that planet from space, when you see our planet from space, you don't see nationalities, you don't see nations, you see one system. Bucky Fuller said that it came without an operating manual or instructions, but I believe there is an instruction manual, and it lies with living sustainably. And I think one of these is very important, which is cultural continuity. And most of our so-called indigenous and primitive peoples actually have the manual for Spaceship Earth. Because whichever part of the world you go, whether it's Australia, whether it's North America, whether it's the forests of India, there are certain ways of life that have always respected the planet. Now, what do we do? How do we do it? So you start small. Perhaps you can start at the city level. So here is an initiative that we are trying in the city of Bengaluru, where I'm from. So we are Bengaluru, and if you ripple out, we have the state of Karnataka, we have the country of India, the planet, and possibly the universe, because that's what Michal told us about. We are currently about 14 million people. I moved to Bangalore in 1984, and that time it was a city of about 3 million people. By 2030, we are expected to grow to somewhere between 20 and 23 million, which means that we need another whole city. What this other whole city will be is certainly not the city we have now, and nor can I imagine we could reproduce a Tokyo or a Shanghai in Bangalore, because that would just be not compatible with future life on Earth, the kind of resources that we would have to use. Now, this growth has meant that the quality of life, in a sense, while there are many positives, nobody likes being stuck in traffic for 3 hours trying to go somewhere. Our cities, by nature, are magnets for immigration caused by a variety of causes, which leads to a lot of problems that designers need to address. And a lot of these problems sometimes stem from our imaginations of what a city should be. So Bangalore has been through many imaginations. It used to be called the pensioner's paradise in the 60s because older people retired there, the climate was good, it was a pleasant city to stay in. It was called the Garden City, thanks to, I would say, an Austrian horticulturist, Krumbegel, who was invited by the Maharaja of Mysore, and he planted avenue trees. And over the seasons, Bangalore changes color. But today it's known and celebrated for being a unicorn city, which I think is a celebration sometimes of the wrong things. It is also, in a sense, a celebration of inequality. We have glittering technology parks, a modern metro system, one of the nicest airports, I think, in the world. And we have a host of these one-horned creatures. 26 of the 108 unicorns in India are in Bangalore. But can this change that we're undergoing be sustainable, resilient, and most important, be equitable and inclusive? And what can design do about that? That brings us to an important project, I think, that we've just embarked on with WDO. 4 organizations came together, WDO itself, the government of Bangalore, the city of Bangalore, BBMP as it's called, the Association of Designers of India, and a sort of a spine for this whole thing, which is Srishti Manipal Institute, where I also work, which is a design school. What we are attempting to do is to build prototypes of what the megapolises of the future could be like. And that's how we coined the word protopolis. We have 6 verticals here. One we call Creative Bangalore, which is about art, culture, and heritage, and how you experience a city through that. Sustainable Bangalore, which looks at resilience, water, waste, environment. Build, or the infrastructure, mobility especially. What are the new kinds of enterprises that are required? Safety and health for everybody. And I'll just dwell on this a little bit, which is what is the new pedagogies that are required for meeting this new world that we find ourselves in. Critical to anything that we do is actually participatory ways of working. And I think design has been through, at least my practice of design in the city has been through these stages where we first came out and said, oh, business is bad. We were all left of center. We said, okay, we don't want to deal with business. But we very quickly realized that design is really about, to make an impact, you have to impact business. Then we said that, okay, social problems, they are outside of what we do. Then we had to really engage in social problems. Today, I find myself having to engage with a socio-political system. I think I spent the first 20 years of my life convincing business that design is good. So all the designers who've come after me haven't had to go to anybody and say, what is design? Business knows design is good now. And there were a bunch of us who did that pioneering work in Bangalore. Today, I find that I've come back full circle. I'm now working with the political class and saying that, hey, design is good for you. But it's also dangerous because we are going to make society aware. And society is going to make demands of you. So how can design work across all the 17 SDGs? For me, the single largest SDG, most important SDG, is that of building institutions of peace and justice. Some of the challenges that we went through, it's taken us 4 years to get this far and get an agreement in place. We've been through 4 chief ministers, at the state level, 3 political parties. And what's really kept us going is co-creating this idea with about 170 organizations in Bangalore. This idea is going to work if we work with our future citizens. So we're looking at education, where students become practitioners, but students need these qualities of curiosity, caring, being compassionate, and contemplative. I think it helps. In India, we have a system by which we say that, when you're a young person, you're a brahmachari, you're celibate, you're learning. Then you become a householder or a grihastha, where you earn, you look after your family. Once you've done that, you become what's called a sannyasi, sort of a hermit. You sort of turn away from society, you spend your time actually contemplating your death, because that's where you're going to go. And lastly, you vanish into the forest. You don't exist for the rest of the world anymore. It's important for people to understand this at a very young age, that you're not defined by your work. You are defined by who you are, and that is not your work. You need a completely new mindset for education. You need to be able to co-create and work in teams, deal with flexible situations with agility, but most important, like the presentation on Gen Z, it's about finding meaning and purpose in what you do. What if the city itself were a living lab for new pedagogies? And for the next 5 years, that's what Bangalore is going to be. And we have about 20 universities that have design programs that have signed in on this. What are the kind of new topics, at least for industrial designers, that we look at? So one, we are looking at, can you teach unmanufacturing? Because in college, you learn how to manufacture, you learn how to put things together, but you don't really learn how to take it apart and return it back to material. Impact design, of course, and this shift from a human-centric design to humanity-centric, planet-centric, extra-planet-centric. So these are some of the vehicles that we're looking at. So Shrishti Manipal has a concept of centers of excellence where new practices create new pedagogies, and using the city as a learning lab to deal with these kind of situations. So it's important that you work with governments if you have to achieve scale. Private businesses alone will not work. So this is a new skill that I believe designers need to learn, how to engage with the political and bureaucratic system. The opportunity is that over the next 5 years, the city and the government of Bangalore are going to invest about $25 million in design research and development. And this would or can translate into $500 million to $1.5 billion worth of implemented projects across these 6 themes. I'll just pick up one theme from each of these. So we are looking at doing about 200 projects over the next 5 years with the money that's been allocated. We have to actually triple the money through contributions from the private sector. So take one, for example, a decentralized water treatment system. Today, about 600, I think between 400 and 600 million liters per day of water is not treated. It's just raw sewage that goes into our water systems. Centralized systems don't work. It could be townships. And I was in Osaka yesterday talking to an urban planner, and Japan has a history of working with railroad companies that build up townships. They first build the transportation and then build the township around it, and that finances the whole thing. So that's something that we can learn from. Creative Bangalore has a lot of, that's a low-hanging fruit for the design community. Circular systems, electric vehicles, battery swap stations, all of this is part of enterprising Bangalore. Safe and healthy Bangalore. I'd just like to take one, the fellow in the corner, the leopard. During the last design week that we had in 2022, when we brainstormed on what World Design Protopolis should do, someone said that there are 5 leopards living in the middle of the city. Yeah, and they've documented this with night vision cameras. And he also said that if you capture them and put them out in the wild, they're going to die because they are city leopards. They can't survive in the wild anymore. So how does a city even look at safe and healthy relationships with wild animals? Future Now is really about the new pedagogies that we need to develop. And we have 20 universities that will hopefully jointly develop, co-develop courses with joint credits and so on. So I would use this opportunity to invite those of you who would like to collaborate with us, because this is a global effort. It's much too large for one city to try and fix one city. We need a planet to do it. So do join us with making a better city. And this becomes a lighthouse project for the rest of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mathew. Thank you again for all the presenters. It's really like sort of, your insightful and outstanding sort of presentations. All the participants and also the audiences will get enormous amount of piles of new sort of insight. Thank you very much. And now let's transition into the panel discussion. We have about 20 minutes. I thought each of them spend more time, but it's very accurate to stop the kind of, the limit of the time. So, firstly, I think there are 4 different types of presentations. So might be the audience, if you have the question to the single panelist, please hand up. Anything. No? Any questions to each of them? No? It's quite a sort of a typical sort of attitude that, in Japan, especially, the students are so shy. And if I ask the students, if you have a question, just hands up, and they say, no, something like, you are the global leaders. Oh, yes, please. Can you just, yes, please. The lady in a red suit, yeah, please. Can you answer it, okay?
Thank you. My question is for the first presenter, but if anybody has anything to input, I'd be happy to hear as well. The values that you stated for Gen Z of human rights, sustainability, fair trade, also social responsibility, in your opinion, do you think these values will stay with them as they age, or do you think this is they might change and adapt as they grow and experience new things? Because Gen Z is still quite young.
Oh, thank you. Korean, there are many generation. So I'm older generation. So the younger generation influence the other generation. The impression very powerful. So a positive influence. So I think but I think my son the different generation. And sometimes I fighting. So sometimes different. So there's no way I upset my son, the daughter, my son, the daughter. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's another question here.
Thank you. My question is for Mr. Mathew. I was very fascinated by your talk about Bangalore. I want to know, how is the dialogue with the religious communities? I'm always fascinated by the huge diversity of religious communities in India. And I wanted to know, is there dialogue, is there input from religious communities about this massive expansion of the city and the growing challenges? Thank you.
I think we have, we are constantly dealing with sort of diverse points of view. Yeah? And as a city, Bangalore has been extremely, I would say, stable. In spite of the forces, in spite of many forces that are acting, to destabilize these kind of equations. And I think that's where it's so important that we use participatory methods, because when people speak with people, and understanding the other is easy when you work together. We find, for example, we have this vertical called art, culture, heritage. I forgot to mention food. Now, food is a way of understanding the other very well, because a lot of religious beliefs are expressed in the food that you eat. And when you share food with somebody, you share more than just food. It's a much deeper sharing. And when you get communities to talk to each other and participate in decision making, I am almost sure that many of these issues that we see across the world right now, of this othering, all the conflicts that we see across the world, this working with the political system and with community systems and holding the political system accountable becomes easier if we design for it. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but we find that this is important when it comes to, an earlier speaker mentioned about caste and dealing with caste in India. And it's when people work together and they earn together, for instance, that some of these boundaries start melting.
Okay? Okay, the other guys.
Thank you very much, and I enjoyed the presentations today. I guess my question is to the panel, but it comes out of the discussion of Ono-sensei and Mr. Jacobs' presentation. I understand the necessity for us globally to think in terms of community action and community empowerment. But I understand that certainly coming from a Japan perspective or an Indian perspective, which is collectivist societies, that working in community and working in groups is very much inherent to the nature of the culture. I wonder, though, being an educator in higher ed, that, and I've sat in on presentations from North America and UK recently, in which there seems, and maybe this is not directly applied, but I think it's part of what you're presenting here. I can't help but think that I guess my question is, within the important discussions about community, where is the individual vision? Yes, Ono-sensei positioned his talk around 20th century product design and graphic design in Japan, and I guess in many respects we are responding to an individualistic philosophy of the 20th century that only wanted to work with other individuals or wanted to work by themselves. But certainly we still, I guess my question is don't we still require individual thinking and those individuals who want to work with groups, but we're still requiring leaders within those groups to be able to have vision, to be able to bring groups together. And I'm wondering, certainly speaking to students and telling them, I think there's sometimes an implicit sense that being an individual, somebody who has vision for the future, is in some way inherently wrong or bad. And I'm wondering whether or not you can speak to the role of the individual who does work within a group, who has a vision, who can actually begin to bring people together and focus community engagement in a way that has very direct vision. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for very difficult question. So that's of course that everyone has the different vision, and then so what's the it's the but for I think the community, I think so we have the different people. And then, so, but we have to find the one direction we have to make. I think so. That's the process for me. So that's the process. Is the important. Of course, the different people have the different direction. How that we can have the consensus. So that's 難しいですね。
That's really difficult.
Yeah, it's impossible. So yeah, we have to find the correct answer or common correct answer in the community. So that is impossible, right? And then so just we have the process. Yeah, everyone can agree that process. I think, yeah, that is my answer. So this is, yeah, okay for you question? Or?
I can also try to give my 2 cents about that question. It's very interesting and a very complex question, but I think we should differentiate between, or we should think why we're talking about community and doing things together. I think a lot of times it's because when there is only one opinion, that person has a lot of unconscious biases. And we as humans, we tend to design, we tend to solve problems from our own life experience. And as hard as we try to do things for other people and have other people in mind, we always have our own experience, and that will kind of come into our set of decision making. So when we're saying to work in groups or to work as a collective is not to dismantle the individual, but to bring many individuals and many opinions and diversity of opinions in order to portray or to get a product or a design or an environment that is designed for everyone. And also we have to make sure that we're moving forward from one size fits all or trying to find a common denominator to something that is more flexible design. If we think about even disabilities, when I think about disabilities, a lot of times it is a construct of our environment and of our design products that we use. And if things were designed in a way that each person, each individual person with different needs and desires and perspectives could change that design, can use the same tool in a different way, maybe that way we can start designing more flexible. And like I showed in space, when you design something 50 years ago that is very, very hard to change, and NASA says that it is easier to change the person, to change the astronaut, than to change the environment. But if we can start designing flexible, I think that is the next step, but the individual is very, very important still.
Well, thank you very much. If you have...
Maybe I could just add a little bit about leadership. And, well, I'm at that stage of life. My wife and I, who are both leaders in our organizations, have reached that stage of life where we're moving to, the hermit in the forest. So leaders are important. You have to constantly develop leaders, whether in the community or in your organizations. But I personally like to think of leadership like a flock of Canadian geese. The lead goose goes back, and the next goose comes up. And that's how I think WDO also functions. I mean, you have a president, you have the president-elect, and you do that. For the World Design Protopolis project, I'm now the third president of Association of Designers of India. Now, in April, I will step down, and the next person will take over, because it's a long race, and you need leaders to replace leaders. So leadership replacement is going to be critical, but they are necessary. And I think this whole notion of the hero designer, hero architect, from Fountainhead, needs to be replaced with what Christopher Frayling, I think, called designer with a small d, not a designer with a capital D.
Okay. Well, it's very interesting because the four of the presentations jump into more like a leadership, and so it's quite interesting. Seminar phase, we are just reaching up. Any other question? No? Oh yes, please. The microphone here, please.
Just building on the Gen Z conversation, and your presentation was very insightful. maybe it's the idealism of youth that is, and certain values are being shaped. But the insight I got from what you were saying is that maybe what they want most is to be listened to and responded to, because the tools are available today. For Gen Z to be listened to, responded to, and be informed that they have individual agency to act. And that also maybe is also already building them as leaders, and not in the future sometime to replace us, but to replace us today, because it's their world we are building. And so that for me was the deepest insight in what you were saying. So it's just a comment on that, and if there's anybody who has a response on that.
Right, thank you very much. Anything you add, some sort of, the comments based on your presentation? No? Is that okay? Well, I have several questions to each of you. Actually, they're quite interesting. Perhaps my sort of personal question on behalf of all audiences, actually, Michal are interested in astro-cosmic kind of like a research and works, right? How you can touch that subject? When you read, they touch the interesting subject in your space. Can you tell us a kind of like a little bit story about?
How did I get to
Yeah.
Completely by accident.
By accident?
Yeah. I was never into space. I never watched sci-fi. I was an architect living in New York, designing skyscrapers. And I realized one day that I noticed that I was the only woman in the room. And I started to explore or research about how the people, the personas that are designing for us, that are the decision makers, the architects, the designers, how their personas, their identity affects the people that are using those designs, whether it is building cities or products. And I realized that there is something called discrimination by design. And many of us don't even feel it. We're so used to doing things the hard way that we don't even feel that it could be better. And I tried to change it, and I tried to talk to the developers and the people, the decision makers, and it was very, very hard because architecture is something that it's a kind of an old profession, and it's hard to change how we do things, and it's also very long-term and complex. So completely by accident, I discovered a competition, a completely conceptual competition to design a settlement on Mars. And I thought that would be an amazing way to design an inclusive, human-centered design environment and incorporate in there everything that I kind of thought that maybe we should in an inclusive society have. And also the different environment of Mars allowed me to detach from what we're doing here. And that kind of snowballed, and I talked about it on TED. I did 2 TED Talks, one in Israel and one in the International Space University, where I later learned. So I got a scholarship from the Israeli Space Agency to study at the International Space University. And kind of it kind of went from there, but today I really feel that it comes almost full circle, because thinking about designing or building in space is the holy grail of sustainability and regenerative, because we can't bring every time that we're missing something, we can't bring it up. We have to constantly think how we recycle everything,
right.
Our food consumption, even our sweat, and how we can absorb it and use it for later on for drinking water. So we really have to think regenerative in that sense, and bringing that back to Earth really can help us design the next stage of architecture. So it kind of went full circle.
Interesting story. Thank you very much for letting us know. Other question is the Ono sensei they're talking about. I've been in the education field for more than 30 years beside of my design business, but I've been thinking about always like a design specialist. How can I say, it's a kind of make a precision about the function of design as the problem solving. But I have a really like a sort of negative sort of ideas against that. I think if you want to solve the problems, you have to know what the problem is. So I setting up some 30 years ago, setting up some sort of national events about problem-finding competition, and was still going on. It's quite sort of important approaches before we use the methodologies, the skills, and also the knowledges to apply for the solving problems. So how do you think? Because you see, Michal, by accident might be, we challenged the competitions and then touched to the different world. And then she tried to find the lot of problems on the Earth. She thinks about and get knowledge from the astronauts and also the spaceships. So it's a quite important thing now, I think. All these, the presentation, kind of giving us a hint that, we already living together with the new generations, digital natives, and also they are kind of like how can I say, the consciousness or other different of our sort of age. I mean, I'm 70 years old, okay? So it's quite like at the grandfather's level. But I think it's the, so new generations, the new approaches to find the problems before finding the solutions. And also trying to find the kind of, the new methodology for maybe invent the new way of education sort of, method might be. How do you think?
Yeah, so that's totally. Yeah, I agree. So that's the finding the problem. So that is also very important. Yeah, of course, the design is not the solving the problem. So, but yeah. So for me, so the problem and the solution, yeah, is the same. So just the from the certain perspective, so that's the problem and the solution, but more bigger, higher perspective. So this is just a solution. So we have the more bigger problem. Yeah, for example, the now. So of course, we cannot fly, right? But in the future, of course, everyone can fly.
Really?
Actually, I don't know. But from that perspective, so now the life, so we have the many problem, right? So that depends on the perspective.
Yeah.
So that is also sometimes this is the problem, and sometimes this is the solution.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my thinking.
Right. Thank you very much. I think it's in the Bangalore, I think in the Bangalore also Generation Z exists, yeah, and also a lot of diversity about the religions and the races and also culture background or like as an immigrant from other countries. Many, the mixture. It's almost like a complexity. But I think that you will be a kind of like a well-designed protopolis. And so how do you feel about like all these sort of mixture together, living in a certain environment, and then you are looking into the vernacular sort of in a situation, and so you're picking up some like sort of issues to give kind of like a creators, stakeholders, to build a kind of a new visions for as a kind of like a well-designed protopolis. How do you think?
Yeah, again, I would reiterate that this is a problem too big for individuals to solve. Many design offices, for example, can come together. In our city, we have possibly about 8,000 students of design from these different universities.
Right.
And one way we are looking at how these projects can be managed and done at a cost that is manageable, because it's not a lot of money for doing a lot of work,
Right.
is how do you harness the energy of young people with the experience of older people? So quite a bit of this work will actually be done by student groups, and those student groups will be mentored by paid professionals. So how do you sort of use Gen Z, for instance, who have the energy, who are not happy with the status quo and will rebel against the status quo? How do you trust them and actually put real power in their hands to change things?
Right.
At the same time, you don't want them to blow up the kitchen. So you will have some experienced hands with them. But I think trusting in the youth, because it's their future. We've messed it up.
Right.
It's their future. They have the power. They should be given the power.
Well, thank you very much. I think all these comments are somehow closely linking to tomorrow's the sessions. We are divided into three sort of major stuff, plus also the politics as well. So it's a quite interesting sort of the format we presented now. I think what time has come already. So I would like to ask you, each of you, maybe from here to there, I think that giving some like a sort of message for the next generation, please, based on your professions. 1 minute, please.
Thank you. 감사합니다. 아리가또 고자이마스. So I entered this presentation, so I felt many things. So I introduced my Korean Gen Z. So your country had Gen Z. So I want another country to compare the Gen Z. So I think so development. Okay.
Thank you.
To tie back to my story before, when I wasn't able to change things in architecture, in the environment of architects that I was at, I went into space, I discovered that changing the way we talk about things can really make the difference. So if I went from trying to solve a problem of diversity or of gender equality in architecture and design, and I switched the terminology to an opportunity. How does the different environment on Mars can present us an opportunity to design differently? So from solving problems, changing it completely into taking advantage of opportunities that are presented to us from a new reality, whether it is climate or generational or politics. I think sometimes that mind shift can do a big difference.
Right.
And think like an astronaut, of course.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, I want to say, so now, so the majority is our generation, the young generation. So that's after a few years, so that's of course the number of the Gen Z become bigger and bigger, and then so that's the change, the majority, and then so that's I think their generation, right? And then so it's your time. Yeah, for
it's your time. Okay. So please.
I think there's a lot of fear. And to overcome fear, it's important, I think, for young people to practice something that is old, craft. Craft sort of brings your hand, your mind, and your heart together. And when they connect, I think issues like working ethically, because sometimes we get torn between what are values, and ethics is different from values. When you have your heart, head, and hand working together, you connect to your humanity, and ethics is about humanity. It is not about values, because people with very strong values sometimes do a great deal of harm. And we've had people with very strong values, Hitler for one, right? Misguided values nonetheless, but how do you live ethically? And I think a good way to do that is through connecting the entire system, and not battery-operated output, but human-operated output.
Right, thank you very much. Well, actually, I think it's my sort of, can you just, they give me a permission to just express my sort of ideas a bit. Here in Japan, we use the Chinese characters, kanji, okay? So that people are talking about like a creative leadership, which is really like, the most important thing in a society now and then. So, but when you have a leadership, you need a strong will, okay? It's a strong will in Japanese, we said ishi, okay? Ishi, I. I is in Chinese characters, the made of sound and heart, okay? So perhaps nowadays we need to, most important thing for us to listen to your sound of your heart, and then how to express to the outside of you, from you, which is the most sort of basic maybe attitude. And then we just apply all these suggestions to all our sort of next sort of generations and also us together. So I think it's the, thank you for our esteemed sort of, the panelists for their invaluable sort of insights to the audience, for their engaging questions. It's clearly that today the discussions shed light on many facets to the topic hand. And he said kind of like a tangible sort of, the skills are very important for our knowledge and also the, the brains, and to think more like a sort of a wider understanding from the changing world. So I think this sort of, WDA sort of Congress here, which is one of the most important sort of, the borderless sort of discussions about thinking about our life, think about our civilization. So thank you so very much. And I couldn't wrap up sharply, but I think it's the each of you, perhaps after this session over, please listen to your sound of your heart. You can vibrate something new, okay? Thank you so very much. And then again, thank you very much for our esteemed panelists, Mr. Yoon and Mr. Ziso and Mr. Ono and Mr. Mathew. Thank you so very much. Thank you very much.